Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tweak, Test, and Repeat. I'm Mr. Umer, and in today's episode, I will be doing a upgrade on my HP laptop. So let me see if I can bring this on the screen here. That's my HP. It's obviously a Windows laptop, not a Mac laptop, but there's going to be a lot of similarities when you're trying to upgrade the RAM or the drive space. Now, sometimes there's a lot of confusion. A lot of folks will be like, well, my iPhone 12 has 128 or 256. Well, that has nothing to do with the amount of memory that your phone has, not in the sense of how much memory can your programs use. So your programs are going to use what's called RAM, random access memory. When your app wants to store something on there like a file, then that's going to save it to some drive space, which that could be a flash memory, it could be an SSD in the case of a laptop. So I kind of have both here. Here's an example of what's called a SODIMM, single output memory module. This is DDR4. And here's an example of a drive SSD. In particular, this one here is an M.2. And the main difference is memory is going to be what your iPhone or your Android or your laptop will use for your program in order to run. So obviously the more memory you have, the better it's going to run. For example, if it's using a lot of video and pictures, then you're going to want to have a lot of RAM. So, well, how do you find that out? Well, I can probably get into that later on, but if you do research on the specs of your phone or your laptop, then you'll find out how much RAM or memory that it has. Same will go with the how much space it has. Now that's the number that they're quoting when they say, well, my Android has 128, 256, or my iPhone has that same amount as well. They're talking about the memory space that's for saving files. So you may have found out that, well, if I have something like small, let's say like 64 gig, then you notice that it runs out and then you have to hit the cloud space. And no one likes to hear those or see those errors, but I'll probably do another video on how do you upgrade the memory space for the drive for a phone. But in this video will be for a laptop. So I'm going to try something new here. Windows 10 allows for me to run my Android phone, the Samsung Note 10 Plus, and you can see it on the screen. Here's the Windows phone app, and I can actually pull up the camera, and voila, we have two cameras here. You have my main camera that's on my desktop PC, which is 4K, and then you have the camera on my Android Samsung, which is also 4K. So you basically have a dual reality or dual cameras without having to buy two cameras in there. So I'll probably do another video on that as well. So one thing you want to do is before you upgrade your laptop here is you want to make sure it's off, obviously. If you're upgrading the parts, there's some things that you can't upgrade while the power is on. Now, sometimes you can do it with removable drives like flash, like a SATA drive, or with a SATA cable, but you're not going to want to do that when there's memory, because once you pull a memory card out and the power is going through it, that's why they call it random. It's going to get erased when the power's gone. But on a hard drive, if you're saving something and you save it and then you pull it out, your file's still going to be saved because it's not random. It's actually written to the drive so that you can pull it up later. So that's the big difference between RAM and drive space. So I'm going to go ahead and put the laptop down. Well, you're probably wondering, well, how do you take this apart? And once you take it apart, am I going to be able to put it back together again? So I've already done this before, and I've had times where it won't even turn on, but eventually it turned on. But you're probably going to want to have some tools here. So have a good set I have two types of screwdrivers here, a Phillips. This one here is almost like a ratchet because you can turn it. It's got like a little button where you can basically you know tighty righty lefty loosey kind of thing. And I also have some small flat blades. There's a camera trying to save power, so I'm going to turn that back on. Anyway, you can see here that this flat blade, I'm going to use that to open up the padding. This is basically the padding that allows you to have air gaps so that when you're intaking, this is probably going to be the intake here or exhaust for your laptop. You have to have that air gap so it raises the laptop up, right? So one thing you'll notice is that if you take the screwdriver here and you kind of insert it in there, then these pads come out. Now, it might be easier on some other laptops, but a lot of these modern laptops today, they pretty much make it pretty hard to upgrade, even though you can upgrade it, right? So the spacing and the clearances are very, very tight and small. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pull it out. If you're that type that's OCD like myself, you're going to try to not scratch anything, but sometimes when you play with stuff and you take it apart, there's a possibility that you could damage it. Obviously, anything that you take apart, that could void your warranty, right? So I don't appear to be doing a good job on this one here, but I'm going to try here. I noticed that that one doesn't want to cooperate, so I'm going to try from the other end here. So I went ahead and I took out the second strip here. So you kind of want to remember where they go. I mean, obviously, if the gap on that is not very much difference, but you can see here, you're probably going to have to use a Phillips screwdriver and make sure you take everything out. I remember when I took apart my my laptop the first time, because I've already upgraded this, but I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to upgrade the RAM that I have in here now to a faster speed. So turn that back on there. Looks like my camera likes to go to sleep here on my Android, so apologies if that turns on and off once in a while, but hey, it's a free camera, right, that I can add. So I'm going to go ahead and take this apart here. And you notice the screws are very small. You probably want to get something that's magnetic. I don't think this one's magnetic here, so I risk losing it. So I'm just going to basically just pull it out. I'm going to have to turn it upside down to get the screw out, but I'm going to basically take everything out here now. As you can see, and one thing you want to do is you don't want to strip the head of the screw, because once you strip that, you may not be able to put it back or take it out. So, and it's not really easy to take something and drill a new hole, like a car. You can do a heel coil and just tap it in there and get a new threaded hole. But on this one here, pretty much you destroy the screw, it's going to be pretty hard to get out. So um, I'm kind of hesitant because I took all of them out. So I'm going to try to just pop them out with my flat blade here. Maybe I can do both here. It's kind of like eating with chopsticks, right? You're not good, it's not going to come out into your mouth, the food there. But it looks like I was able to get the majority of them out. Do I remember where they went? No, but you notice some of these types of screws, even like if you work on cars, you'll notice that they color a certain color. So I'm sure that means something there. If I don't over torque it or something, right? Let's see if I can take out that last one there. And don't worry, I know the other camera turned off. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out first. Doesn't want to cooperate there. Doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. They forced it out, but it came out. So there's one more there. That last one that didn't want to come out. I'm going to try to pop that out. Can't really see it on the screen there, but it is coming out. There we go. So these small squares are great, but then they retract. But then when you want it to stay, it doesn't really want to do what I want. So I went ahead and I removed the screws there. Let's see if I can get a better view on my camera there. You'll notice that all of the screws are taken out. Hopefully, you'll find out if you try to pop open the case and you're trying to force it, you might rip it apart. So one thing you want to be careful also is USB ports. So if I pop that out, you damage the USB port, that's it, or your HDMI, then you can't plug it into a external monitor, or your flash drive may not work. Now, the most difficult thing I found about taking this apart is how do I, the screws are out, right? You'd think the cover is going to pop open. No, that's like half the battle. So that's where we have some trusty tools. It's a very special tool. It's a 7-Eleven card, right? Rewards card, in fact. I'm going to use that to try to pop it in. So one thing you will want to do is what I did to pull this open is I have to stick my fingers in there. So, don't worry about getting everything dirty. I'm going to go ahead and stick my fingers there in here and try to pop it open. Probably the most difficult part is this here because basically you want to open it up. You don't want to damage anything, right? So one thing you can try is from the sides, you can try using your magic key. And let me see if I can turn this back on. Yeah, my magic key is there we go. So it popped a little bit. But this is what I did. I went in and let's see, you can see it there, or you can see it on this camera here. I went ahead and I jammed the card in there. Now, one thing you want to be careful about is when you pop it in there, you could break the clips that are in there. This is held with clips. Bear in mind. Now you can probably hear it on my microphone if it's picking it up, but you know, one thing you can do is you can probably use two, but I was lazy. I only had one card that I pulled out. Don't want to damage my Starbucks cards, right? I still got some money on that. I want some coffee, right? So you'll notice that it's already starting to pop open. Sometimes it makes noises that, wow, you know, it's never coming back again, right? But you'll see that as I open it, the computer boards you can see in there, PCBs, polycarbonate, I believe, right, board. So there it is. I went ahead and I popped open the back. You'll notice that there's a lot of pathways that they have in there, a lot of holes, right? Sometimes you'll have laptops where they have some thermal solutions in there, right? They might have some paste or some thermal tape in there, which could get a little messy. Normally they won't do that because they don't want to have that dry out, right? So let's turn the camera back on. So let's go ahead and show the inside of the laptop there, right? Notice there's your screen, there's the laptop. Now, once you open it up, you're like, okay, well, what's in there? It's all Greek to me. Well, if you take a look at this here, um, let's see if I can do it on my Samsung here. Maybe I get a better view. A little hard to see there, but I can probably zoom in a little bit, right? Zoom out. There you go. So here's a laptop. I'm gonna bring it a little closer here. So one thing you'll notice is, I'm not using any kind of static stuff. So if you're worried about static, you can always ground yourself on some metal. A lot of the computer pros would be like, well, you gotta have the little ESD strap or whatever, electrostatic discharge strap. Well, a lot of the circuitry are built in with circuits that will account for that. Can you still damage it? Yeah, if I had a good amount of shock, I could probably damage something in here, and it'll probably still run, but you never know. Maybe it melts something, right? But a lot of static is not going to have a lot of current, which will destroy things, right? It might have a lot of voltage, but not current. Current's the one that kills, right? But you'll notice here is the memory here, right? If you're into Legos, you'll see that, well, if I'm going to remove something, I'm going to replace it with something that looks identical, right? So there's the memory. This memory I have in there right now is pretty good memory. Um, it's DDR4. It's also G.Skill, but let me pop that open. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that open. Maybe you can see that there. Or maybe I should turn it around. Let's turn it around so you can see it right there. There you go. Let's move my mouse. And well, how are you popping this out? Well, you'll notice that there's some clips here. Pop it out. Try not to force it though. One thing you don't want to damage is the gold pins in there. That's where all the here's the better view here. The gold pins are where all the energy goes in and out, right? When you're turning on and off stuff in there. So here's the old one. Um, this is an 8 gig stick, so I got two of that 16, right? 8 times 2. So you're probably wondering why you're replacing with another one that's uh, larger, right? Well, actually, this is larger right here. If you notice, this one here is an 8 gig, and this one's a 16. So yeah, this is a definitely upgrade, right? So if I put two of the 16, what is that? 32, right? So basically, I'm going from 16 to 32, right? Um, and they always come in pairs, these SODIMMs, right? A little blurry there. But you notice that this one here says 3200, right? That's the speed in megahertz. 3200 being the frequency that the RAM runs at. So normally the higher the frequency, the better. Now you notice what I'm taking out, right, is, let's let that focus in there. Let's see here. Right there. 2666, huh? Mark of the beast, huh? So this one here is running at 2666 megahertz. Well, you might hear like, well, CPUs run at this speed. So RAM also has a clock, so each clock, that's where a task gets done, right? It might do on these here 4, right? So probably per clock, depending where it is on the signal, probably 4 tasks are being done, right? Um, so this is a good speed upgrade. Now, you can't just you could have a laptop and you could add the fastest RAM, but is that going to give you more performance? It might give you more performance in that you have more RAM, so you can open up more programs and you can run things like Photoshop and do raw editing and stuff like that, and video editing with Premiere, right? But uh, sometimes a laptop won't support that speed, and that depends on your central processing unit, your CPU. So that laptop I have here, you can't really see it here. This HP has a i7 1065 G7, I believe, which is a 10th gen Intel core, and it's 4 core, 8 threads, right? Um, so it's still pretty fast, but power efficient. You might get a little bit more battery life out of, let's say, an Apple M1. Uh, but obviously on the Apple M1, uh, one thing that you should be aware about is you can't upgrade the RAM in there, or you may not be able to. Apple is trying to lock that down so that any kind of memory, or especially the memory, I believe, is soldered on there. So they've done that in the past with their Intel-based Macs, but now more so now because of the integration. Instead of going with being compatible with the industry, they're using their own hardware, right? Or they're preventing users from being able to use hardware that may not sync up well with their CPU, right? So it's kind of like less is more, right? They're gonna give you less, make you pay more, right? Until you actually need it, right? Or if you need more, you're gonna pay for a Mac Pro, right? But on a Windows platform, that's the flexibility. Even though you have to deal with Windows, you have the ability to add more memory and more drive space, a lot more than you can with a Mac. So once you get into the Mac ecosystem, it may be easy to use, but you're pretty much, if you want more RAM, you're gonna buy a second laptop or another desktop, which was what uh, a MacBook Air is what $800 or $900. A MacBook Pro is going to be 1,200 or more. Could be up to 3,000. Who knows? Um, but with PC hardware, it's almost perpetual. You just keep upgrading to whatever the latest, fastest parts are until it maxes out, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pop out the last stick here. You can see these are the two G.Skill. Um, G.Skill is a very good brand. I love them. Better than Corsair or some of the other brands. Samsung's good too. Um, so let's make sure they're always going to be a match pair. You'll notice that not just the speed, the 3200, you're going to have to worry about the timing in there. It says 18, right? CL18. So that CL18 has to do with the latency of the chip. So technically, when you buy RAM, um, the faster it goes up, like the faster it goes in megahertz, the higher the latency is going to be in there. And then until you pay more to get a faster megahertz and a lower latency. So those chips have to work harder. But you'll notice that what I have on here is a 3200 CL18. The one I'm replacing is a 2666 CL19. So I am getting some performance here. And one thing you can do to see that is you can run some application. You can time it and see how fast it goes, or you can load more applications. Obviously, I have instead of 16, I have 32 now. A lot of folks like to use Geekbench. You can use that. SignBench. Those are some processor type benchmarks that can basically output a score. Um, in my mind, those kind of synthetics, they should be compared uh, within its own ecosystem. Once you start saying, well, my Apple M1 gets these badass benchmarks here compared to your Intel one, which looks slow, but in reality, it actually depends on the optimization of the application on there. So you can have a really fast laptop, but then your 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 laptop can't run the software, right? It has to emulate it. No one wrote software. You have to rely on Apple to create a app for you, or you have to wait for someone like Adobe, who's lagging behind, to create a Photoshop that actually runs on the Mac, right? But on a PC, what do you got? We have over 1 billion Windows laptops or Windows devices, right, that run Windows 10, and you got about what for Mac, you got about 60 million. So it's very small. They like to say, oh, we're everywhere and we like to influence the industry, but really in reality, they're the flashy kind of thing. We call it the lifestyle type thing. Like I have an iPhone, I have a watch, right? It's really cool. It works well, it's fast. But when I really want to get some real work done, uh, office work, you're going to be using an Intel based platform because of the compatibility of software. Uh, I want to be able to do movie editing. I don't want to be stuck with iMovie. I want to use whatever software's out there from various manufacturers or various software developers. So that's the difference between a Windows ecosystem and Apple. Windows might be a little bit more difficult to learn, but once you get it, you can do a lot. Apple may be easier to learn. When you find out when you want to try to upgrade, you can't upgrade. So that's where it gets you. You have to buy a new laptop with bigger specs to get what you want. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade it here. One thing you'll notice is that on these pins here where the RAM came out, you notice that the notch is there. There's a notch. It's not exactly centered. So you want to line up the notch on this memory module onto the notches there. Obviously, if you force it, you could break it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it in this way here. You can see here, I'm not trying to put too much force on there. And then what you do is you move it down until the clips click in place. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So there's a nice click there. I'm not sure if it picked it up on my camera. Let's see if I can get it closer here, or actually on my mic, right? So I'll do a little snap click. So that clicks in place. And you'll notice that those RAMs are seated in there. If you feel like, oh, it's not really in there, you can always pop them open and get it in there. But normally, once it's popped in, it's good. Obviously, if you turn it on, it doesn't turn on, then you might want to check that. You could technically damage the RAM. So, but we've already opened it up. It's already too late. Now, what if I want to upgrade the hard drive space or the SSD space? Well, that's going to be this guy right here. That's a PCIe, peripheral component interconnect. Let's bring the camera up again. And I already upgraded that, so that's what this one was. This was 128. The one I put in its place is well, this one's an HP. It's not really an HP, but it's branded HP. It's actually an Intel drive, which has something called Optane. So they basically combine some memory, like your RAM here. They have 16 gigs of that on the drive, which helps accelerate the SSD in there. But the one I put in its place is a genuine Western Digital 1 terabyte. And you'll have to look at the specs. I'll put the specs in there, what I had upgraded on the RAM and NVMe M.2, right? But that's pretty much it. But if you do want to upgrade this here, obviously the you'll see here the M.2 screw. You're gonna have to get that out. It pops open similar to the RAM, and you're gonna go ahead and put that in there. So one thing you want to do is, well, okay, I got everything in there. What happens if I turn it on? Well, we're about to find out, right? Let's get that back on there. I'm not going to pop the cover on there because I'm going to do that later on, but I'm going to go ahead and just turn it on. May not turn on, actually. Sometimes when you try to turn it on, the switch doesn't go because it's sometimes there's a protection mode too. You know, when the HP detects that you open it up, sometimes you have to hold down the power button, or it may have discharged, or I completely broke it, right? So one thing you do is you can kind of hear it's on. Maybe what I'll do is I'll pop it back in. Obviously, it's not all the way in. Let's see what happens here. So it's hard to tell. Normally, when you turn these on, there's nothing really on the back of the laptop that has to make contact. It's just plastic. But sometimes the circuitry knows when you've actually upgraded or touched it, right? That's how they avoid your warranty, right? So, see if I can get this on. There we go. You can see the light turned on right there, right? Kind of hard to see. Oh, right there. The hard drive light, right? So it might be trying to cycle through. Maybe that RAM that I had sitting for a while is growing stale, right? I do hear it popping on, but I don't see anything posting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it down, the power button. See if the power goes off. And it did. Turn it on again. It's coming on. There we go. I hear the fan. This has happened before when last time I upgraded my HP. I actually had to turn it on and off a couple times because it wasn't posting on display. But it'd be nice for this video if we actually showed that it came on. Let's leave that on for a while. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check inside, make sure everything's popped in. Push the tool here. So it did take a while. You'll notice that the HP is booting up. I was starting to sweat there, like, oh wow, I did this nice teardown and it tore down everything, pretty much destroyed everything, right? Won't even boot up and you lost everything. So one thing you probably want to do is before you attempt anything like this, obviously if you store and you save it on a hard drive, it's going to be there unless you damage your hard drive. If you keep copies in your email or on your OneDrive or iCloud or whatever, that's probably the best way, and secure. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together and enjoy the RAM. Probably what I'll do is I'll log in right now and let's verify that the memory took, right? So if I do, I know in Windows they change it about a lot. So I type in the search command, I type in um, about. You can see that the 32 gigs is in there. How do I know it's running at 3200 megahertz though? Well, that gets more into the advanced tools, um, but I can show you here. Let's see, I'm going to pull up an application that will, hopefully it'll show how fast the memory is going. Actually, we don't need to use the advanced one. What we can do is we can use the one that's built into the Windows Task Manager. So what I did is I'm going to pull up the Task Manager there. I have a desktop here and trying to show you on another desktop, right? And if you select the Performance tab of the Windows 10, this is your Task Manager, right? Maybe I can show it on my phone here. Not sure if it's any more clear. Probably not. It looks like it's overexposed there. But basically, you'll see the number down there, 3200. So it's reporting correctly the speed. You want it to report the correct speed. If you popped in the memory and you bought a 3200 and you get 2666 or 2400, then that's probably the max you can get. You can always go into um, the BIOS setup, right? Basic input output system. You can easily access that on a PC. I'm not sure about how to do it on the Mac. Um, or even, I believe on the Mac you do have a task manager type application where you can see the CPU and the memory speeds in there. Or you can download this tool that I have. It's called HW Info 64, and that one will tell you the metrics. It'll measure the metrics of what you have in your laptop, the CPU speeds, how much RAM you have, how much hard drive space you have, or SSD space, how fast they're running, the timings. And then you can verify whether your upgrade, you're getting exactly what you had bought, right? Obviously, you have to do research, find out, can I upgrade, right? And what can I upgrade to? Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's our tear down of a laptop and upgrade DIY, right? So one thing you want to do is don't be afraid. I mean, if you do break it, that's why we have people we can pay, right, to do that. And some might opt to do that. You can always pay someone to upgrade it for you, Geek Squad, or even if they do that anymore, Fry's, Micro Center. They have Apple Care. Maybe you can send it to them and they'll send it back. It's like magic, right? They'll upgrade it for you. So they're basically going to do the same thing. Um, but yeah, you want to make sure that you do your research, do your homework, figure out if you can upgrade your RAM. Sometimes you don't know until you open it up, right? Whether you can upgrade it because you may not have slots in there, or maybe it's soldered. But if you do, you do the research and you find out, oh, I can upgrade, then you can go on Amazon or Newegg or whatever application and you can upgrade and find from there. So that's it, all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. So take it easy. Bye.